ranking the games from Smash Ultimate's first Fighters Pass: Persona 5, Dragon Quest XI, Banjo-Kazooie, we'll talk about Terry's game when we get to him, and Fire Emblem Three Houses. My 5th favorite game from this Fighters Pass is Banjo-Kazooie. Of the 5 games we're talking about today, Banjo-Kazooie is the only one that I didn't enjoy. At all, really. Because of this, I haven't beaten the game. I stopped playing it. Typically, even if I'm not enjoying a game, if there's a mechanic that I find really interesting, or a story that I'm really engrossed in, or even just an idea that I know is going to pay off in a big way later on, I am willing to stick with a game to see that part that I like through to the end. But there really wasn't anything about Banjo-Kazooie that was drawing me into the game. This is in large part to the game being very outdated, which of course is to be expected. Most 3D platformers from the 5th generation of gaming, when the genre was created, are very rough around the edges and not up to the quality of the games of the genre that are being released today. That's understandable. But even though many of the other platforming giants from the era share problems with Banjo-Kazooie, such as wonky movement, a horrible camera, and visuals that are neither timeless nor charmingly old school, not only are all of these issues even worse in Banjo-Kazooie than the likes of Spyro and Crash Bandicoot, but there are aspects in those other games that redeem them and make me really enjoy them. Banjo-Kazooie as a game, as a concept, and how it was executed is something that I just think isn't for me or for my taste in gaming. It is a collectathon, a very slow-paced collectathon. I know many of you perhaps rightfully say my opinion will not be valid on this because I haven't beaten the game, but after playing the first few levels and experiencing no level of meaningful challenge, I could not have been more disengaged with the game I was playing. The biggest thing stopping me from enjoying Banjo-Kazooie, I think, is that I did not play this game as a child. Where a lot of games in this genre try to be accessible to children, just as they are accessible to all ages, Banjo-Kazooie seems specifically constructed for children. And that is not a bad thing at all. That is not a negative criticism of the game. It is simply a likely explanation for why I could not find any enjoyment in it. If the game ever gets re-released or even a remake on a modern platform, I do still intend to pick it up. Hopefully they can maybe fix some of the control issues at least that I had with the game, and I do intend to beat it someday, because it is a very important part of Nintendo history. It's just not going to be today. My 4th favorite game in the Fighters Pass is Dragon Quest XI-S, Echoes of an Elusive Age Definitive Edition, and Knuckles vs. Capcom EX3. Game of the Year. This is one of the most polished and well-constructed RPGs I have seen this generation, with production value that stomps all over most other games in the genre. The game's visuals are absolutely beautiful, and that's not even close to the level of quality as the music you'll be hearing. The monster designs are some of the best I've seen in gaming. The game has a great amount of heart to it, but all that said, this, along with Banjo-Kazooie, is another game that I have not finished. These are the only 2 games I'll be talking about today that I have not finished. But with Dragon Quest, it's not because I didn't enjoy the game, it's because I went in well aware of knowing just how long this game was going to be. And unfortunately, the gameplay experience I'm having doesn't feel like it's going to be worth investing that amount of time into. For all the good things I've said about the game, its most common criticism that I agree with, although you could say it's not necessarily a criticism, is that it is incredibly unoriginal. And I realize that in many ways that is entirely the point, but it means that everything I am experiencing in this game I have experienced before, probably in a far more unique product. You play as a chosen one, set in a fantasy world where you have to save the world from an ultimate darkness and fight against an evil government, where your party consists of a thief, a black mage, a white mage, and I think you get the point. Once again, that doesn't mean anything I've experienced is bad, because it's not. I have played the game for, I think, about 12 hours. And without spoiling anything from the game, I stopped playing the game around when I got a green thing from a mermaid. If any of you who have fully played this game know the part I'm talking about and can tell me if the game really picks up or there is a lot worth seeing, let me know. I'm pretty sure I can see where the story is going, And as well, I don't think the gameplay is going to get much more interesting than what I've already experienced. You can finish a lot of games in 80 hours or even 40 hours. And while I am willing to finish this game and probably will continue to chip away at it occasionally, I don't think finishing it would change its position on this list. In fact, when I went on vacation over the holidays, I brought my Switch with me specifically to make progress in Dragon Quest XI. But halfway through my trip, I decided I didn't really want to keep playing Dragon Quest XI anymore, and instead, I really wanted to start up a third playthrough of Fire Emblem Three Houses. It is entirely coincidental that Fire Emblem Three Houses is also my third favorite game in this Fighters Pass. Or is it actually my 17th favorite game in the Fighters Pass? I've said it before, Fire Emblem Three Houses is the first Fire Emblem game I have ever enjoyed. And I enjoyed it a lot. Right now, it is my most played Nintendo Switch game that isn't Smash Bros. And despite some critical flaws I have with this game, such as the visuals being the ugliest I have ever seen from a Nintendo game on the Switch, and being a little disappointed in how samey all the different routes in the game turned out to be, those are vastly overshadowed by one of the most addictive RPGs I have ever played. Its narrative and characters are among my favorite in recent years. There are characters I like, and there's even one or two characters that I don't really like, but the vast majority are characters that I absolutely love, which is crazy impressive for a game with a cast this big. It is a perfectly satisfying tactical game for me, giving you complete freedom with how you want to build your army, ensuring that every subsequent playthrough that the game clearly wants you to have can be entirely different should you choose, this being aided by one of the most addictive gameplay loops in RPG history. And perhaps most impressively, it achieves all of this newfound tactical depth for the series without neglecting the wants of its more casual audience, its fans that are more interested in the game's story and character arcs, and even maintains a heavy dose of waifu baiting for the undeniable portion of the audience that is here specifically for that. As much as I would personally enjoy that last aspect being deleted from the game entirely, the fact that I was still as satisfied with this game as I was despite still maintaining that audience is impressive. And after my initial experience with the Fire Emblem franchise, I think that is the most appropriate word to attach to Three Houses. It's impressive. My second favorite game in this Fighters Pass is King of Fighters 13. It's a little weird picking just one game for Terry in this list. He's a character that isn't based on one singular appearance and doesn't have one singular fan favorite game to point to, but my two favorite games from him are the King of Fighters 13 and the King of Fighters 98, and since I've just been playing more of 13 recently, that's the one I went with. Some of you might say I should have picked something from the Fatal Fury franchise or even Fatal Fury 1, but not only is the Terry in Smash almost nothing like Terry was in Fatal Fury 1, but, bit of a confession, I have never played a Fatal Fury game. So that's why I'm talking about King of Fighters 13. And whether I went with that or 98 or even a lot of the other King of Fighters games, it would still land at the number 2 spot. King of Fighters 13 is simply one of the best 2D fighters I've ever played. It's a blast and does all of the essentials right. Its style and visuals is pitch perfect with great music to match it. It achieves everything control-wise, mechanically, and the depth that you want out of a traditional fighting game. In an era where most big fighting games are dumbing down the fighting to appeal to an audience that doesn't even want that, King of Fighters 13 is a shining example of what a fighting game can be when it isn't afraid to just be a fighting game. It's a game that goes all out. I may not have the emotional connection for this game that I do for Three Houses, but there's simply not much I can look to in King of Fighters 13 to poke holes in or criticize or point to something that specifically detracted from my experience of it. It is rock solid for anyone that has an interest in fighting games. I should mention before we move on that I have not played King of Fighters 14, but I am absolutely looking forward to the release of King of Fighters 15 later this year.
When we talk about a game title, we need the up front, but the name of the tournament in the game's story is just King of Fighters.
And with absolutely no surprises left in this video, my favorite game in this Fighters Pass was absolutely, without question, it's not even close, Persona 5. I have far too much I want to say about Persona 5. I really don't even know where to start. I have a video that I want to make about this game that I know I'm not gonna get to make for a while because that video will easily be feature length. Persona 5 rewired how my brain worked. It told my anti-anime brain to sit down, look past how unappealing the art style was to me when I looked at the box art, and take a chance on this experience that has been so finely and purposefully crafted in every minute aspect. So you can understand why all of your friends with a PS4 have been calling this one of the best games of the decade. And in the end, I loved everything about this game, including its styles, visuals, and presentation, which undoubtedly is the main draw for a lot of people. And of course, there's nothing I can say that hasn't already been said about the music in this game. Very likely being my favorite soundtrack from this generation, top 3 for sure. But similar to Three Houses, what is truly incredible about this game, and even more so when talking about a game as meaty as Persona 5, there is so much going on that you can engage with, get attached to, and can serve as the main draw for you. For me, what kept me engaged was a fantastic turn-based combat system, and a fascination with how every other seemingly unrelated element of the game fed back into it. That was familiar enough for me to jump right in and know exactly what I was doing, but offered enough originality to make me feel like I was playing something that I had never experienced before. Sometimes playing something that is entirely new, something no other game has offered me before, is even more valuable to me than simply an objectively high-quality product. I bet that if you went by howlongtobeat.com, Persona 5 would be recorded as the longest game I have ever played, for a main story run at least. Yet nothing is wasted. It is not a flawless game at all. I don't want to give people the impression that I think this is some perfect masterpiece of a video game. Man, this game is hard to talk about when you only want to spend a few minutes on it. What is your ranking of the games featured in Season 1 of Smash Ultimate's DLC? Since we are talking about 5 absolutely legendary, all-time great video games, I bet the lists are very diverse, and the conversation is very passionate. Thanks for watching. Take care.